I do think that there's a strong possibility, a solid possibility that changes are coming. If they flame out against Detroit, or even if they're non-competitive in the second round against the Boston Celtics. I think earlier this year, somebody asked me about Tom Thibodeau, and I thought, just based on everything that had happened, everything that I'd heard coming into the year, I didn't think there was a scenario where the Knicks would change their head coach. But now, more recently, just having conversations with people and seeing kind of which way the wind is blowing, I think this is the stakes are high for Tom Thibodeau going into this postseason.
I think if the Knicks don't get past the first round somehow, there's going to be changes probably.
Yes.
I know there's been a lot of pressure. People mentioned Tom Thibodeau. I've heard rumors, front office stuff could happen. Mikal Bridges is up for an extension, and there's going to, a decision's got to be made whether you think long term he's the answer that you thought he was when you gave up 5 first-round picks for him. To me, this is a real make or break period that's going to tell you what this season was more than the 51 wins. We've seen what's happened with some coaches that have been to the finals, have been coach of the year in just recent days, recent months this season. I don't think anything's assured, and I think what Tom Thibodeau has done for this organization is tremendous. But you see Mike Malone get let go in Denver. There's just expectations, and if you don't live up to them, even with the contract extension kicking in, at some point there's always fire where there's smoke.
Bigger picture, though, Steve, with the Knicks. I mean, talking about what's at stake, and I think Knicks win the series, get to the second round, compete in the second round. I think that there's less of a chance that something major happens. But we talked about it at the top of the show. I do think that earlier in the year, I thought whatever happens in the playoffs, everybody's going to be back from a management coaching standpoint. Again, just talking to people around the league and around the situation, I don't think that's I'm not as sure on that at this point with Tom Thibodeau in particular. I do think the stakes are high there for Tom Thibodeau for this series and then the following series, whatever happens. And for you mentioned Mikal Bridges. What else is at stake here in terms of Tibbs, Bridges, and what are you hearing?
Look, I think everything is, because when you get to a point like this, we talk about the Pistons and the Knicks were there. They were a building team, and you could kind of see like the future. Well, they made the future now by making those 2 moves for Karl Anthony Towns, Mikal Bridges, and signing OG Anunoby to that contract. This is the group that they built. And look, I don't think it's the wrong thing. I think, when you have a Jalen Brunson, whatever the window is for him, age-wise, health-wise, he's a guy that is a championship player, I think. And if you put the right pieces around him, they believe they did. And I think that ups the stakes. Now, if it doesn't work, my experience as a veteran writer is very, very rarely does the guy who put the team together take the blame. It's somebody pointing a finger at the coach, or it's pointing a finger at a player, for why it didn't happen with the pieces that were assembled. So to me, I think everything's at stake here. I think it's Mikal Bridges' future with the team, whether he gets that extension and stays here as a part of this. I think it's, do they look to trade for, the names have already been out there. Kevin Durant's going to be available. Giannis Antetokounmpo could become available if they get knocked out in the first round. I think, it could be the coach. It could be the front office. It could be a player. It could be a star move. I wouldn't rule out anything at this point, because the same moves that made them feel an urgency last summer to make this happen now, I'm sure are only, the stakes are raised now on that it's a year later and you've got to make this happen. So if it's not working, that's the move you make is sunk cost. You start going to the next thing that's going to make it work.